When a sudden war breaks out or a government issues strict new sanctions, international trade can stop almost instantly. In those moments of crisis, a simple stack of paper is often the only thing standing between a business and a total loss. Global commerce is difficult because buyers and sellers are often separated by thousands of miles, or a bank steps in to guarantee that the money stays safe while the goods are in transit. But even a bank's guarantee has limits. To understand how it holds up during a crisis, we need to look at 5 things: the shock absorber, the invisible wall, the spelling bee judge, the escape hatch, and the pause button. Navigating these 5 mechanisms helps turn a chaotic global conflict into a manageable business risk, ensuring you aren't left vulnerable when the political landscape shifts. At its core, a letter of credit is a bank's irrevocable promise. Once they sign it, they cannot cancel their commitment to pay the seller a specific amount of money. Think of this as a financial shock absorber. When trade hits rough patches, like sudden supply shortages or spiking shipping costs, the bank's promise keeps the deal stable and prevents it from falling apart. But that promise is conditional. The bank will only release the money if the seller can provide a set of perfect shipping documents. When the paperwork is exactly right, it unlocks the funds, and the bank completes the payment. This creates a reliable engine for trade, but it's a system that relies entirely on everything working exactly according to the rules. While a physical war can block a shipping lane, economic sanctions act as an invisible wall that blocks the money itself. Many of these walls are built by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control. They monitor global transactions to ensure money isn't flowing to regimes or entities that pose a threat to security. For example, the U.S. maintains strict sanctions on trade tied to Iran. If a bank realizes a transaction involves a sanctioned country or company, they are legally forbidden from moving the money. It doesn't matter how valid the original letter of credit was. The sanction acts as a total override, stopping the bank's promise to pay dead in its tracks. To stay on the right side of the law, banks follow one rigid rule. They deal only in documents, never in physical goods. The bank acts like a strict spelling bee judge. They don't care about the cargo itself. They only care that every letter on the paperwork matches the requirements perfectly. They're looking for specific language, like dual-use goods. These are everyday items, like certain bolts or chemicals, that could be diverted for military purposes or nuclear programs. Because the bank can't see the actual crates, they have to obsess over every line of the invoice. If they overlook a detail that violates a trade law, they face massive government fines. This intense focus on paperwork is the bank's way of protecting itself from becoming an accidental participant in a financial crime. To add another layer of protection, banks often include a sanctions clause. This is their emergency escape hatch. It explicitly states that the bank will refuse to pay if they discover the deal violates anti-money laundering or terrorism laws. It gives them a legal way to exit the deal if it turns out to be illegal. But what if the threat isn't a law, but a physical, real-world catastrophe that completely closes the bank's doors? This is where force majeure comes in. It's a rule that says a bank isn't responsible for delays caused by superior forces, like riots, natural disasters, or wars. It's like a pause button on a stopwatch. If a conflict breaks out and the bank loses its communication lines, the clock stops, and the bank isn't liable for the disruption. While the letter of credit is meant to give the buyer and seller peace of mind, these specific clauses are designed to ensure the bank isn't destroyed by events it can't control. This brings up a big question. If the bank is just a judge checking paper, what happens if the actual cargo arrives at the port damaged? The bank still pays the seller. As long as the papers were correct, the bank's job is done. This is why buyers often pay for independent inspections before the goods are even shipped. So why would a seller agree to a deal that has so many escape hatches for the bank? Because even with these clauses, a bank's conditional promise is significantly more secure than simply hoping a stranger thousands of miles away will send the money. We've seen how trade survives through these 5 concepts: the shock absorber of a guarantee, the wall of sanctions, the strict judge of paperwork, and the legal escapes of the hatch and the pause button. Since this whole system relies on humans catching every tiny detail in a mountain of documents, it's worth wondering, could artificial intelligence eventually take over the role of the judge, spotting these risks before a crisis even hits the headlines? Until then, understanding these complex mechanics is the best way to ensure that when global politics disrupt business, you aren't caught off guard.